Hi everybody, I'm Margaret Lewin and welcome to Margaret Lewin Quilting. Today I'm going to do a project out of Fun with Fabric Strips, and this is a Nancy's Notions product. I'll put a link to it below. But what we're going to make is this tote bag right here. I just think it's absolutely adorable and I wanted to share it with you. I'm doing something a little bit different with mine though, because what I've done is I've sewn together a whole bunch of strips that to me look like Christmas. So the first thing I did was, according to the book, I took as many 2.5-inch strips as they recommended. And then I have here one, let me find my end first. Hang on just a second. We gotta find the end. I have quite the mess going on here, but I always do, so. All right, here's my end. I'm gonna start with the white fabric because what I want to do is I want to make this jelly roll or this basket so that all of the whites together, then all of the prints together, and then all the reds together. So I'm starting with my white, but what I've got today, which is something brand new that I've never seen before, is a jelly roll sasher. And what this product does is this helps to guide your jelly roll through this, and then it makes it really simple to stitch it down. So I'm going to get my machine set up. I'll come back and show you exactly how I'm going to do it. What I am using is my number 8D foot. So the first thing I need to do is change that on my machine, and I'm going to be using my 8D. The other thing I'm doing is leaving my stitch length at the normal, which on my machine is 2.5. I want to go over a couple of things that I've done before I start sewing. The very first thing is I've got my large strip here of all my fabrics, and I'm going to take it, I'm going to put my batting in my piece, and I want you to see what I've done. I've taken it down a little bit. The reason for it is because I want to fold this over so that I've got a very nice finished end. So first I'm going to do is I'm going to put it into my jelly roll sasher. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to put this into my sasher. And so here it goes. All right, so now it's in there. It's all secure. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this down just a little bit so that it's in there securely. Then I'm going to open this back up again. I'm going to fold my fabric over. And if you need to trim it a little bit, what you can just do is open it back up and see just above where that batting is. I'm just going to clip that corner off. I'm going to clip this corner off. And then what will happen is this will fold into there just a little bit neater. So here we go. Here's my first fold. I want that fabric tucked right down in there. Okay. And here comes my second fold. All right. So my piece is all in there the way I want it. I'm now going to just take it and I'm going to fold it like this. And I'm going to hold this while I go over a couple more things with you of what I did on my sewing machine. I am using my Bernina 790 Plus. What I also did when I set it up is I'm using my 8D foot, and that's on here. I have engaged my dual feed. I'm using a regular needle, but there's one more thing that I did do. I did decrease my presser foot pressure, and I've actually put it down to, let me double check, I'm at 30 on my Bernina 790 Plus, so that you know what changes I've made to my machine. Other than that, I haven't made any other changes. I'm going to start stitching, and what I want to do is I want to create a little bit of an opening right here. See how there's that opening? So when I stitch it, I want to try to stitch it right in the center because I want to catch both of these pieces of fabric here. And I want to leave just a little bit of room so when I bring that next piece, I can butt that right up next to it, and then I'll have a bag that doesn't have any holes in it, which holes in a bag wouldn't be good. So I've clipped that so that I've got a hold of it. So I've got my presser foot up. I'm going to remove my Wonder Clip, and then I'm just going to hold this and I'm going to slide this right under. What I want to do is I want to make certain that my dual feed foot right here is totally underneath my fabric, so that when I go to stitch, what happens is it grabs that piece of fabric and does what the dual feed is supposed to do. I'm going to first do my hover feature to make sure I'm lined up where I want to be, and right this second I'm not. So I'm just going to reach around and I'm going to kind of wiggle my fabric over a little bit. I want to try to have this side of my 8D foot lined up with the edge of my strip right here. All right, so now I'm going to put my presser foot all the way down and I'm going to start stitching. My machine is programmed to do a lock stitch at first, and that is something that I can change on my Bernina 790 Plus. You can see I started a little bit before, so now that I've got that fabric being gripped nicely by the presser foot and the dual feed, I'm going to do a back stitch to get me right back to the end, and then I'm going to start again. So here we go. I'm going to do that for the entire length of all my strips, so keep watching. All right, so now I've stitched a little bit. I'm going to come back in here. I'm just going to take my two pieces, my fabric and my batting. I'm going to fold those a little bit, and I'm just going to pull this down towards me. Just pull it nice and straight. Hold this. I've got a hold of it with one hand, and now I'm just rolling it right over. And then I'm just going to continue to stitch. That's simple. That's all it takes. So I will be very honest with you. I think this is a much easier way to do any type of a jelly roll project. And you can see here's my stitches, and I'm just going to keep right on going. All right, it's time to move on to the next step. I've got my Creative Grids ruler. This is my 18.5 by 2.5 inch ruler, and I've got all of my wonderful string all put together ready to go. So the first thing I'm going to do is take and measure according to the instructions, and you can see here's my folded side, here is my solid side. I'm going to take and I'm going to fold those at the point that it states in my book. And then I'm going to take a Wonder Clip and I'm just going to clip these two together. I'm going to move down and I'm just going to insert another clip because I just want to keep these nice and together and flat and easy to work with. I'm going to set my ruler aside. I have put my 1D foot on and I have engaged the dual feed. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust my stitch length and my stitch width. My stitch length is at 3.0. My stitch width is at 6.0. I'm going to set this underneath my presser foot, and I'm going to line up the center where these two pieces of fabric meet with the center line of my 1D foot. I'm going to use my hover function, which is something that I just love on this machine. And again, my machine is the Bernina 790 Plus. And then I'm just going to start stitching. It's going to do a lock stitch, and then it's going to do a couple stitches. I'm now going to remove my Wonder Clip. I'm going to go a couple more stitches forward, and now it's locked the stitch, so I really don't need to do this, but I am going to back stitch it, only because I think this piece is going to get a lot of use, and I want to make sure that I've done that. The next thing I'm doing is I'm taking both of my hands, I'm putting one on each side, and I'm just going to guide the pieces through. I'm not telling it which way to stitch. I'm just using this guide on my presser foot to guide me through. I'm all done with my wonder clips now. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to sew right down to my end. Then I'm going to do some back stitching. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do next. I'm going to back stitch so that I can get all of this out of my way. Now I'm going to take this, which is the bottom, and I'm going to wrap it around. See how I've wrapped it? I'm trying to keep it as flat as I can, and at the same time, here, now you can see I've kind of gathered it a little bit. I'm going to come down. So here I go. I'm going to stitch forward again. Now I'm slowing right down because I want to do a little bit of hovering. Now I'm going to put it right back down again, and I'm going to stitch once, twice. I'm going to back up once, twice. I'm going to hover again. And this time when I hover, I'm going to try pulling this flat, laying it down, and at the same time, I've turned it a little bit, so I'm going to catch more and more of that fabric. I'm going to do that again, a couple of stitches back. And see, the whole idea is to get this corner as flat as we can. I'm going to go a stitch forward, one more, and now I'm going to hover a little bit again. This machine is fantastic for one of these type of projects because I can lift up the presser foot when I want to so that I can manipulate the fabric and then put it back down again. And it only moves just a little bit, and I still have my needle in, so I'm all good. I'm gonna bring it down again, and I'm gonna do a couple more stitches. I think this time 3 is gonna do it. And now I'm gonna back stitch, and I'm gonna go forward again. One more stitch, and now I'm gonna hover again. And now look, I've managed to go around that corner, and now I'm right back going straight. So I'm gonna put my presser foot down, and I'm gonna stitch straight. Now I'm gonna back stitch again, because remember, this is one of our corners, and it's when we're first starting, so I wanna make sure that I've got my corner good. I'm gonna keep on stitching. Then I'm gonna do the exact same thing when I get to this corner. So I'm gonna go down, I'm gonna stitch all the way to the end. Then I'm gonna do some back stitching. I'm gonna start manipulating the fabric around my corner. All right, go forward. I'm gonna hover. Turn my piece, put my presser foot back down, do a couple stitches, a couple back stitches, a couple forward. I'm gonna hover some more. Now I'm gonna go back down and do a few more stitches. Okay, and then once you've done that a couple of times, as your piece increases, it will get much smoother going around that corner. So I'm just going to keep right on stitching here, and I'll come back and show you how I go about lifting it so that I can actually make this into a basket. All right, I've readjusted the camera because what I really want you to see is how I'm lifting this basket to make it into a basket, or lifting the piece so that I can do that. So what you're seeing here is I have taken the bottom of what's going to be my basket, and I've stuck my hand, my left hand, on the back side of it, and I have lifted it straight up and down. And what that does is that gives me a really nice flat base to go by. Now, one of the things I want you to know I did before I started doing this part is I went over to my ironing board with just the bottom, and I used my Mary Ellen's Best Press and I starched it really well. I let it dry, then I brought it over and started stitching on it. But as you can see, I've got that piece totally straight up on the left side so that I'm forming that basket. All right, so it really is very simple to do. The other thing that I did do, and I don't know that you can tell it from the video, but when I held the back of it with my left hand, I took my right hand and I actually am very slightly pushing it into the pressure foot. What that does is that helps to create a bag that stands straight up and down instead of a bag that increases in size as it gets taller. I'm going to finish up my bag and then I'm going to come back and show you how I made my own handles. All right, let's get going on our handles. So what I'm going to do first is press my 2.5 inch strip of fabric, and I'm using the red so that it's a little bit darker of a color. I like to try to do darker colors for things like handles, only because I think they don't show the dirt as easily. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little clover fusible web. This is 1/4 inch. And I'm going to put a little piece down, and I'm going to get as close to the edge as I can. And then I'm just going to rip that piece off. And then I'm going to take my iron and I'm going to press that right down. I'm going to do that on both ends. I'll let that end cool. I'll do the second end while I let that cool. And what this does is this provides me with a nice 1/4 inch fold over, because I want my ends of my purse to be finished off. And I'll show you that in just a minute. But in the meantime, I like to try to get that as close to the edge as I can. And then one of the easiest ways to remove it is to just take a straight pin and score right across the paper, and then you literally can just pick it right off. Do that on both ends. Alright, now let me put my pin back so that I don't melt it. And then I'm just going to take that end and I'm going to turn it over, just like this, and then I'm going to press it down. So I tacked it, now I'm pressing it. I'm going to do that on both ends. So now when I put my handle together, I've got this nice finished edge right off the beginning. And I think that just gives it a nice finished look. All right. The next thing that I am going to do is I'm going to take my piece of batting and I'm going to lay it down just under that, because what I want to do is I don't want too much bulk right here. I'll show you. See, I'm taking it a little bit down, and then I'm going to fold it over and I'm going to press it again. And what that's going to do is just kind of adhere that to the back of my fabric. I'm going to do that on both ends. We go on the second end. Just folding it over nice and pressing it. The next thing I'm going to do is I am going to press it, folding it over and pressing it just so that I've got a start to it. Because I folded over my ends like this, I don't want to run it through my sasher that I showed you earlier. So I'm going to press it over, kind of towards the center, and then press the other side over towards the center. I'm going to try to match it up a little bit better than that because that wasn't a good matchup. So there we go, one side. And here we go, the second side. All right. Now, if I start by simply pressing this, which I'm going to do right now, and then I take and put a pin in it once it cools enough that I can touch it. This will help me tremendously when I go to fold this over and stitch it down, because this part of it has already been started. All right, so I've got a nice little pin in there now. So now I can just go right on down the rest of it and just do some fold over, and let's press. Then what I'm going to do is just kind of lay these out together. Whoops, it's hot. Be careful. And I'm going to do some more pressing. This just gives me a little bit of an advantage when I get over to start working on it on my machine. Now that I have folded it and I just tacked it down, okay? It's not going to stay there perfectly, but it does kind of help to give it a little bit of a memory of what I want it to do. I'm now going to take a small piece of home cording. Lots of times this is used in drapes or all different things. And I'm just going to measure out a piece, and where I'm measuring is from my fold over down to my other fold over. And I'm just going to clip that. And now when I sew this together, I'm going to nuzzle this right into the center. So I'm going to fold over, and then roll it. And what that's going to do is give me just a little added strength right there, okay? And just a little bit more to grip on with my hands. So that's what it is. The last thing that I'm going to do before I take this over to my sewing machine is I'm going to pull out some of my Wonder Clips. I've got them all in this neat little basket, so they're close at hand. I'm going to take these, I'm going to line that up where the fabric is, and I'm going to roll this over just like this, and then I'm going to stick a clip in it. Now I'm going to remove this pin. I want you to see closely how I've done the end of this. I'm going to remove the pin. And I'm just going to take this, I'm going to pinch it together and roll it over. And see what happens is you get that very nice finished end. And I think that's important to make it look very nice. I'm going to continue this all the way down. Then I'll take it over to my sewing machine and I'm just going to top stitch it. Let me show you where I'm going to top stitch it. I'm going to top stitch it about 1/8 of a way, and I'm going to go down here, and then I'm going to go right down this side so that I enclose all of this. And then our handles will be ready to attach. All right. So now you can see I've got one set of my handles on, and I do want to show you what I did was I sewed a square all the way around, and then I did a cross, and that just really reinforces it big time. So the next thing I want to do is get my second set of handles ready to go. One of the things I want to make sure is that I place my handles on the exact same way as they are here. So on mine, I've got my seam going out. All right, so my seam is now facing out. And the other thing I want to do is make certain that my handles are lined up on both sides so that they're the same. So one of the ways I'm going to do that is just take my bag, looking right down into the center, just kind of find my center placement so that when the bag sits, it's really folded pretty nicely. And I think I'm just about center. I could also measure it and see how my measurements come out, but I'm just checking to make sure that it's pretty centered. Then I'm going to take a strong pin and stick it right in the middle here. And then I'm going to do it again on this side. And where I'm finding it is, here's my handle, and I'm just finding the placement of it and just putting it right in the center. It's the first check I'm doing. I have one more to do. All right. So now I'm going to take my handles and I'm going to place them where those pins are. Right in the center, and then just repin them. All right, I'm going to bring this one around and do the same thing. Now, the next thing I want to do is make certain that my handles line up pretty close to one another. So what I do is, see, I've got the bag in my hand, and I'm just kind of balancing it so that I can feel that it's in a good position. I don't want one band to be a lot taller than the other band or vice versa. I want to know that they feel decent together and that the bag looks pretty even together. Now, I do think, based on what I'm feeling here, it's a little off, so I'm going to shorten this a little bit, just a little teeny tiny bit. Just bring it down just a little. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. So I've done it on both sides, okay? And now I'm going to check it again and see how it feels. Oh, that does feel better. That little bit of a difference made a difference. All right? Now there's something that's kind of messed up with my handle. It needs to go this way. There. Okay. Now my seams are to the inside. I think you can see that. All right. So now I'm going to do the same thing on this inside. So now it's time to stitch the handle down. How I'm going to do that is I'm going to start here. I'll stitch down, across, up to here. Then I'll go diagonally down to here, back up to here, and then diagonally down to there. And I'll do it on both handles, and then the project is done. Thank you so much for joining me today while I made this adorable little Christmas tote bag. The fabric that I made this out of is called Merriment. It's a Moda fabric, and I cut my own 2.5-inch strips, but you absolutely could use a jelly roll or any 2.5-inch strips that you might have. If you do end up doing this project, please post a picture of what you've made in our Facebook group, which is called Margaret Lewin Quilting. We would love to have you join us over there. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel here on YouTube, please do, and I'll see you here again soon with another fun project.